All right, welcome into SportsBit Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, Thursday, June 9th. Big game breakdown, 2 baseball games, a unique scheduling spot we'll explain. We finish out the NFC West with deep dive, team previews, Seattle Seahawks today, and we try to make it 2 in a row the play of the day. Before we break down Game 3 of the NBA Finals, a special SportsBit moment of silence for Kevin Love's agent. His stock's at an all-time low, Teddy.
Yeah, and this is the perfect picture. The perfect picture. Moment of silence right here. Yeah. How much did Kevin lose last night? How much has Kevin Love lost when you talk about the contract that he's not going to get next time out? The betting markets went nuts, and it was not what I predicted on yesterday's sports bet. I was wrong about this one, Paul. I thought that if Love was announced as out, that the money would come towards Golden State, but the opposite was true. As soon as the Love was announced as out, the markets flocked to Cleveland, flooded with Cavaliers money. We're talking about a game that was pick'em, was Golden State -1. As soon as Love was announced out, it's Cleveland -2 at a bunch of books. And the books and the markets were 100% right that Cleveland was a whole lot better without one of their big three.
You think they regret that Wiggins trade? Oh, man. Brutal.
Yeah, just a wee bit.
Bad beats, bad bets. Hey, tough beat if he had the under. This has been the opposite of most of these playoff games. It exploded late third quarter and into the fourth.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the first time in the entire playoffs that the offense didn't come to a screeching halt during the final 5 minutes of a blowout. You know, the total closed at 206 after 2 straight unders in games 1 and 2. The in-game wagering, it was as low as 191.5 in the third quarter, but 22 points over the last 4.5 minutes with nothing but reserves on the floor. OVER over. Tough beat if you had the other way.
Well, we finally have a series. 2-1 now. The Cavs finally beat the Warriors. A bad bet, obviously, on Golden State. This tweet from ESPN Stats and Info, that was the 20th time. It's a record. A blowout by 25 points or more in the playoffs. The record was 11. The record was 11 in 2008, 2009. Again, 20 wins by 20 blowouts where the margin's 25 or more already. And the Warriors came out flat. The Splash Brothers struggled again. Points in the paint. Cleveland killed them there. Oh, what a rough start for the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a case that the game was over in the first quarter. You know, I mean, I know that the Warriors cut the lead to, 7 before halftime. But let's be real.
Yeah.
This game was over at 33-13 before the first quarter buzzer. The Warriors talked for 3 days about coming out with energy, and they came out flat as a pancake on both ends. And they're jacking up bad threes throughout the first quarter, 1 of 10 from three-point range. Meanwhile, the Cavs are taking the ball in the paint, shoot 15-21. And yet Golden State used a ton of energy to get back into the game. They didn't have it again when Cleveland went on their run in the third. And we talked about it here on SportsBit yesterday. Kyrie Irving being the key for Cleveland every bit as much as LeBron. He certainly was in game number 3.
Yeah, bad job by Kerr. Bogut can't play in this series. Steve, you were there. Did you watch the finals last year? He was -21 in 12 minutes. They cut it to 8 at the half. They immediately bumped it up to 16. Get Bogut off the floor. And how about the Cavs shooting 75% in the third quarter, Teddy?
Well, yeah, I mean, and a lot of guys for Cleveland had good games. You know, LeBron played well. Kyrie played well. Richard Jefferson, a guy who you've been ripping throughout the postseason, he played well. Tristan Thompson taking advantage of the extra minutes without Kevin Love in the lineup. He played well. J.R. Smith brought his A game.
Yeah.
When you talk about who brought their A games for Golden State, none of the big three did. You know, Harrison Barnes played well. Iguodala played well. Livingston maybe. But the guys the Warriors needed to step up, you know, they didn't have it in game number 3.
What's going on with Curry? How do you explain this?
I'm a little bit baffled, to be honest. Look at this from ESPN Stats and Info. The fewest points scored and assisted on by Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry this season. Well, let's see. Game 1, they had 34. Game 3, 35. That's the 2 lowest of the season, and they've come twice in the first 3 games of this series. At the 6-minute mark of the third quarter, Pauly, Curry was sitting on more turnovers, 13, than made field goals, 12 for the entire series. He had a little flurry in the third to make things, you know, not really to make the game interesting, but to make his stats look better. But Steph Curry, he's not right. You know, not right. That's the wrong way to phrase it. he hasn't been the best player on the floor here in the finals, and that's kind of what we're used to seeing from Steph Curry.
Well, it's, same thing for Golden State. Silly turnovers and silly fouls. I thought Fry had Curry in a headlock for the second foul, but still, he's committing dumb fouls, and the dumb turnovers continue. Game 4 openers, Cavs 206.5. What do you think?
Well, I mean, when you look at some of the numbers from Game 3, the Cavs were plus 20 on the glass. They were plus 22 in points in the paint. They only gave up 8 fast break buckets. The last 2 games, they forced 20 and 18 Golden State turnovers. But you remember, the Warriors are in this spot. And, of course, this is the 4th time in 4 playoff series that Golden State has lost Game 3 on the road.
Yeah, correct.
They lost Game 3 on the road in Cleveland last year in the finals to fall down 2-1 in the series. But Warriors off a loss are not a thing to be trifled with. Warriors off a poorly played game are not a thing to be trifled with. And I'm not convinced that all those guys from Cleveland can bring their A game the same way that they did in Game 3. So I'm surprised that the game opened. The Cavs 2, even some 2.5s out there at the opener. I thought it would open right around Pick'em again. But, at the current number, first lean, got to be towards Golden State.
How about a bad beat push? Blue Jays. Bad beat push the Blue Jays. The total, about the over. It's 7-2 in the 5th inning. That was the final score.
Yeah. 8 combined innings of scoreless relief from 2 mediocre at best bullpens. And how about this, Pauly? Those two bullpens, they give up 1 hit in those 8 innings combined.
Incredible. Yeah.
9 runs early, no runs late. It's a push if you had it at 9. There were 9.5s out there. Brutal beat if you had 9.5. Shop around for the best number.
Yep.
Won't be losing those games by a hook.
Bad bet. This was our play of the day. The Nationals White Sox over. Big game, James. Oh, he blew up, man.
Though this one, it felt like a sweat. It almost felt like the Toronto game.
Died.
It's 7-0 top of the 3rd. I'm feeling pretty good about the wager. Next thing you know, it's 7-0 in the 8th, and you're like biting your fingernails. Like, come on. But they finally got to the bullpens. But, man, the market's got this one right. The Nationals bet from minus 145 all the way up to minus 175. Shields got pulled down 6-0 after giving up a leadoff single in the 3rd. 10 of the 16 batters that he faced reached base. He gave up 3 dingers. I'll tell you what, watching James Shields make his White Sox debut literally brought tears to the eyes of Robin Ventura. Look at that photo.
Yes, one more bad bet. A 45-cent move on the Red Sox. I mean, we knew at about 10 a.m. Pacific that Posey wasn't going to play, and it was just an avalanche of Red Sox money, and they lost 2-1?
Yeah, I mean, the line went from San Fran minus 120 to Boston minus 125. All 3 runs scored in the games came on solo home runs. And who got the winner? Of course you know who got the winner. The number 8 hitter, Mac Williamson, the reserve outfielder with a 167 batting average and 0 career home runs. Yeah, game on the line in the 8th. He hit the game winner off Price. Tough beat. If you had Boston, hopefully you had him, at least you had him at a plus price and didn't have to lay later in the day after that Posey injury information came out.
Seahawks deep dive, play of the day coming up. Up next, big game breakdown. 2 games in MLB, a unique scheduling spot. Coming up on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much more.
All right, time for big game breakdown. As always, go to sportsbookreview.com for live odds. We got the Indians and the Mariners. It's Tomlin against Carnes. Mariners $1.28 the total. One of the biggest questions through the first 2 months of the baseball season comes into focus today. Has Tomlin been pitching well, or has it been MLB magic? You look at this graphic. Tomlin, the last 2 seasons, 2015, 7-2 with a 3.02 ERA. 2016, 8-1 with a 3.45 ERA. Also look at the FIP. Combined 15-3 with a 3.27 and the FIP's a 4.37. You're not supposed to be 15-3 with a 3.27 ERA, Teddy.
Yeah, let's go to real estate, and talk about comps. All right, let's take a look at some ERA comps to Tomlin and their win-loss record over the last 2 years. Here's 5 guys. Eichhoff, Keuchel, Harvey, Ross, Hamill. You put them all together, their ERA is very comparable. 73-60, slightly above average. That's not 15-3. Magic. In Tomlin's 20 starts, the Indians score 117 runs. That's 5.9 per game. This is the same team that doesn't score for Corey Kluber 3.4 runs per game over the same span. Yeah, that's luck. That's not Tomlin pitching particularly well. But here's one more that's a little bit of baseball magic for Josh Tomlin. It's not really easy to have an ERA of more than a run less than your FIP over 20 starts. And when pitchers do it for years, we pay a whole lot of attention to it. But how does he done it? Look at the magic. Batting average on balls in play over the last 2 seasons, 161 pitchers with enough innings to qualify. You have Estrada, you have Young, and there's Tomlin. And even that's fluky. Estrada and Young, they're extreme fly ball pitchers. Tomlin is not. He's at, 39.3 ground balls the last couple of seasons. So, again, we bring up the real estate. So let's talk about comps. What are the BABIP comps for his style? Well, look at this. We got Kendrick and Peavy and Shoemaker and Fears and on down the line. And all these guys, with the exception of Tomlin, 270, 280, 300 BABIPs. And there's Tomlin standing out like a sore thumb at 232. So that 15-3 record, Pauly, it does not correlate to great pitchings. The Indians score more runs for him than he would expect to get, and his batting average on balls in play is a major outlier that is primed to regress.
Great job breaking those numbers down. Now a challenge. The Mariners lineup in Safeco Field used to be something pitchers look forward to. Not this season. Look at this graphic of the Mariners offense the last 3 seasons. You're talking 23rd, 27th, 23rd, 22nd. But look at this season. Average 7th. On base percentage 5th. Slugging 6th. This has been night and day this year for this Seattle offense. And we talked about earlier the run that they were on with all those overs that they're playing. And that offensive support makes it a lot easier for these starters, especially Carnes. Teddy, they can sit back, relax, and let it fly.
Yeah, Carnes so far this year, we're talking 5-2 with a 4.23 ERA. The FIP is lower at 3.64. So his results not even necessarily as good as we would expect him to be. And he has the stuff to succeed. The guy's got averages more than a strikeout per inning. But the question for Carnes is the command. He hasn't really developed. His career walks per 9, 3.6. This season, even a tick higher at 3.8. If Carnes is throwing strikes, if he can get those tight strike on the corners, man, this guy might be a real bet on hurler. So far, he hasn't been getting those calls. He hasn't been getting those tight strikes, and that has kind of held back his development at least a little bit.
Yep, one more. Remember, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Pirates and the Rockies. Lock against Bettis. Lock $1.10. 11.5 the total. Not a great game, but a unique scheduling situation. The Pirates played a doubleheader Tuesday night at home. Tuesday evening, Tuesday night. Extra innings against the Mets on Wednesday. Now they go to Coors for one game. And it's at 2 o'clock Pacific. Then back to Pittsburgh Friday night for a key series against St. Louis, Teddy.
Yeah, and, at the same time, the Rockies, they had a game that started at 8:10 Mountain Time on Wednesday in L.A. Now they have to cross back through the time zone for a game that's early start. Now, supposedly this is the best that Major League Baseball could do. They couldn't force the Dodgers to move up that Wednesday game. They reached a compromise for the between the two teams. A day start would penalize the Rockies. The night start would penalize the Pirates for Friday. So they met in the middle with a 5:10 Eastern time start. But at least the starting pitchers aren't going to be bothered by this ball. Jeff Locke and Chad Bettis have already been in Denver for the last couple of days.
And Locke looks average at 5-3 with a 4.28 through 11 starts, but he's found his command. You look at this graphic. How about this turnaround? First 7 starts, 1-3 with an ERA of 5 and change. And look at the walks per 9 innings. Last 4 starts, 4-0. ERA 2.76 down big time. And look at the walks down big time as well. Meanwhile, Chad Bettis looking for a place to hide right now. How about these last 3 starts, Teddy?
Oh, my God. They've been remarkably ugly. But, Bettis has had a lot of ugly numbers throughout the first early stages of his career. Last 3 starts, how about this? 0-3 with a 11.48 ERA. He's given up 17 runs on 25 hits and 13.1 innings of work. He's added many walks and strikeouts. He's given up 5 home runs during that span. Yeah, Chad Bettis not exactly a bet on hurler. That being said, the Rockies helped set up for this. They sat Trevor Story and Mark Reynolds in L.A. last night.
Yep. We finish out the NFC West up next. A great organization, the Seattle Seahawks, and we try to make it 2 in a row with the play of the day on SportsBit. Betting and Insight today.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, time for the deep dive. Seattle Seahawks over under 10.5 wins. 10-6 straight up last year, 8-7-1 ATS, 9-7 of the under, plus 6 in turnovers. The mainstream numbers on offense, number 4, on defense, number 2. Really strong numbers on both sides of the ball, Teddy.
Yeah, and this team has been amongst the very best in the National Football League in each of the last few years. Basically, Pete Carroll took them 1 year to gut the roster and bring in his guys. As soon as they found Russell Wilson, boom, they're in the playoffs. They're competing for Super Bowls.
Yep.
And with an over/under of 10.5 wins this year, the betting markets certainly expect Seattle to be in contention for another Super Bowl title in 2016. And you look at those mainstream numbers, as you mentioned, number 4 on O, number 2 on D. Those are really strong numbers. Those are numbers that attract a lot of betting market support. And when you talk about Seattle, this is not a team that you're going to find a lot of bargains with at this stage of their development. That being said, you don't necessarily find bargains with the Patriots, and the Patriots continue to cash winning bets every year, and that's the way the Seahawks have been the last few years as well.
Russell Wilson was awesome last year. He's an elite quarterback. He keeps plays alive. I don't think he has a lot of weapons around him. I think he makes Baldwin a shaky offensive line at best last year, too, and he still made it work and took him into the playoffs. I think Wilson's a terrific quarterback.
Well, let's put it this way. Last year, Russell Wilson had a 110.1 QB rating. That was the best QB rating in the NFL. And, oh, by the way, it doesn't even count his scrambling ability. He was sick last year. He was downright sick. Huge play after huge play while running for his life, as you mentioned, behind that dismal offensive line. A strong third down conversion rate, even though they didn't have a steady running game last year that put them in 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2 the way they'd been. He was incredible on 3rd and 7 or longer. But this is year 5 of Russell Wilson's career. Okay, he set career highs in touchdowns, QBR, passer rating, yards per pass, and completion percentage last year. Can he get any better, Pauly? Or is this if you have the best quarterback rate in the NFL, is it going to get better? Is that kind of the ceiling for what we can expect from Russell Wilson?
But a bad offensive line could be worse. I think Cable's doing a good job. Not a head coach, but a good old line coach. And they lose Okun, and some other guys took off too. So he's going to be running for his life even more in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of real question marks on that offensive line. Okun's gone, Sweezy's gone, both in free agency. The guys they brought in to replace him, Jamarcus Webb and Bradley Sowell, you could say that they've been arguably 2 of the worst tackles in football over the last couple of years. That being said, I mean, Cable's a genius. He creates something out of nothing. I don't throw that term around lightly. What Cable has done in terms of the development of offensive lines, his ability to see characteristics in players who aren't necessarily even offensive linemen, and then create, make them into linemen. He's pretty good at that. And even though Webb and Sowell have been pretty lousy, maybe there's hope. Of course, they're going to start the rookie Fetty at guard. Gary Gilliam, who is badly overmatched at right tackle. He's moving over to the left. Justin Britt's moving to center. Competing with Patrick Lewis. It's certainly an offensive line that's going to come into the season in flux, Pauly. And that's definitely, if you're asking me red flags for Seattle, the offensive line is red flag number 1.
Okay, a couple of moves. We know Bruce Irvin went to the Raiders. Beast mode retired. Is that a big deal?
I think it's a non-factor. I really do. I mean, watch Thomas Rawls or Christine Michael or the rookie out of Notre Dame, Prost matches mediocre numbers. Again, as a leader, Marshawn Lynch was a great leader. Everyone in the locker room respected him. As a running back, Pauly, he's very replaceable. Certainly at this stage of his career. Non-factor, in my mind, his loss.
All right, this is big. This team, when they made their deep playoff runs, they had home field. It might be the best home field in all of sports. Well, guess what? They didn't have that last year, and they had to go on the road in the playoffs, and they got lucky that Walsh missed what amounted to an extra point, and they were fortunate to win in Minnesota, and then they ran out of. They had nothing in the first half at Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, and really, if you talk about what happened in the postseason is that they had to go to Minnesota. And that was as brutal a playoff game as you'll ever see. Remember how physical that game was and how cold it was. And it doomed their chances. You know, they were out of gas after that. They were out of gas the following week. Seattle, of course, has had great success at home in the postseason. But their schedule this year, much weaker than it was last year. Last year's schedule was slightly tougher than average. And, of course, they got off to that slow start. They went 2-4. They got swept by the Rams. There were a lot of issues. This year, again, based on the 2016 season win totals, the Seahawks face a below-average strength of schedule and only 2 10 a.m. Pacific time starts. That's fewest in the division. Of course, the Seahawks' track record in those games under Pete Carroll is excellent, Paul.
Yep, I think they win the division. They win total 10.5. Early thoughts, what do you think?
Well, I mean, they only have 5 games against playoff teams from last year. They have 2 tough roadies. They have at New England and at Green Bay, as well as at Arizona. They play Carolina and Arizona at home. But it's hard to picture them losing more than a handful of the other 9 games that they play. You know, the only non-playoff team to beat them last year was St. Louis. Of course, as the division plays the AFC East and the NFC South. There are 2 extra games. Philly's not expected to be very good this year. At Green Bay, not going to be easy there. But I'm with you. I look at Seattle as the team to beat in the NFC West and maybe the team to beat in the entire NFC.
All right, time for money time. Play of the day. Let's make it 10 out of 14. We go back to the Pittsburgh, Colorado game. Early start, 2 o'clock Pacific time. Betting number 967, the Pirates minus $1.10. The Pirates against Bettis, 388 batting average. His career ERA at Coors is over 6 in more than 120 innings pitched. Pirates, the play of the day, and let's keep it going right here on SportsBet. Great show coming out. We close out the week tomorrow. Game 4 NBA Finals and the Dodgers and the Giants. Kershaw against Cueto. We'll talk to you then on SportsBet. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.